the big game between Michigan and Ohio State. Ohio State with a win can clinch a spot in the Big Ten Championship in Indianapolis, where they would face off in a rematch with Oregon. Michigan sitting around a 20.5 to 21 point favorite. Under's taken some money down to 42.5. Obviously, a huge triple revenge game for Ohio State. I'm sure they want to bury Michigan. But, so I know that you like Ohio State. You're gonna maybe try to convince me. I lean Ohio State's way. It's either Ohio State or nothing for me. I make the spread over 21. But where I struggle, and I actually like the under too. I don't really know how Michigan's gonna score. But I'm afraid that Ohio State will try to run it up if they get the chance, just like they did against Indiana for I don't know why. And that ended up putting the game over. So that worries me a bit. But where I struggle to potentially lay it is I know Michigan is also going to show up and be motivated for this game. Can their defensive line dominate this game? That's what gives me pause. And this game's going to be super slow pace. Like Ohio State's not fast. Michigan's going to try to shorten the game at all costs. But with Ohio State's offensive line injuries, they couldn't run the ball last week. I mean, what did they average? Like 2.5 yards per carry if you remove one long run. So they couldn't run the ball. They're going to have to throw. Can Michigan's defensive line cause some havoc? Will Howard can struggle under pressure. And this game's just going to be a slow grind. Michigan does have a really good kicker who can make them from deep. In a slow game with a low total, that's what gives me pause. But it's Ohio State or nothing for me. You love the Buckeyes.
I love the Buckeyes. I've already bet the Buckeyes at 20.5. I'd bet them at 21. Not saying that I think that it's going to be an easy cover. I definitely think there could be a score in the fourth quarter that gets it over and maybe pisses a lot of people off with Michigan tickets. But I think if you want to break this down mathematically, am I supposed to believe this 50 burger that Michigan put up against a lifeless Northwestern team? They averaged 6.2 per carry. Donovan Edwards, Mulling, they all had a really good day. 34 attempts, 5 rushing TDs. They went 12 for 17 on third and fourth down conversions against Northwestern. So Michigan certainly had themselves a day. Maybe it's something that Sharon Moore needed, just because the season has not been up to expectation. So you have to ask, can Michigan's heavy inside zone, can that dominate against Ohio State's defensive line? I think the answer is no. Ohio State's 54% success rate against inside zone. We saw that. We had this exact same discussion against Indiana. They were just fine. They don't allow explosive plays whatsoever. And Ohio State dominates teams that use man concepts, which Michigan has been known to peel off and do. So I don't see an avenue for Michigan to get even close to do what they did offensively against Northwestern. There's no answer for Michigan against Ohio State, against inside zone. The Wolverines are 42% success rate in defending inside zone on their defensive line. The Buckeyes are 64% success rate in running it. I know there's some issues on the offensive line, but we've kind of seen Will Howard have a coming out party. And whether we're dumping off into the flats or Will Howard becomes a bigger part of this offense, which he does in the biggest games, he runs more. I think Will Howard is going to have a couple of wrinkles in here that maybe Michigan hasn't seen. There are strong signals in the market that this thing's going under 44 down to 43. Personally, I make it 49. And I think this thing has gone over like every iteration of the last 10 seasons. I mean, this has been an over series all the way. And I think if you want to step back from the numbers, there are things percolating between this rivalry that makes me think if either team gets a lead, they're just going to keep piling it on. And now it might be Ohio State's turn. You could look at some comments that Ryan Day has made this week about how personal this game is. You can look at read into that a little bit and figure out there's been some negative recruiting against him by Michigan. And the Connor Stalions thing does not sit well with anybody at Ohio State. So I think if there is a chance to run this up, it's absolutely going to be ran up with no hesitation, even with the Big Ten championship next week. So I like Ohio State on the side. The only reason I haven't played the team total over is because it's Tuesday as we're recording this. Those don't usually come out till midweek. So another data point you might want to consider, either team total over or the Ohio State side.